Here's a quick tip for the LSAT India. In case in the exam you find a word or a phrase that looks very difficult to you, let me assure you, you do not need to know the meaning of that word. The LSAT India tests you on your precise understanding of ordinary simple words. Which means that today, if I'm going to talk to you about contrapositives, don't get scared. It's a very simple concept, a concept that you will need in order to solve questions. So just stay with me for the next 10 minutes or so and try to understand as to what this concept is. You see, in simple terms, if I'm to explain to you as to what contrapositives are, when you have a question in the LSAT, a statement is given to you, a fact is given to you. Now you need to know that on the basis of this fact, you can actually learn more out of it, right? So the statement that is given to you allows you to derive more information from it. Let me give you an example. Let us say the statement that is given to you is maybe that whenever Virat Kohli scores 100 runs, then India wins the match. Let us say this is the statement that is given to you. Now, on the basis of this statement, it is possible for us to derive some information. Let me perhaps think of it like this. Maybe if Virat Kohli scores 50 runs, then India loses the match. Can I derive this from here? Or maybe if India has won the match, then surely Virat Kohli must have scored 100 runs. I hope you realize that these are some of the pieces of information that one would be tempted to draw from this. However, it is not necessary that this is right. So there's a method whereby you derive information from existing information correctly. And in this video, I will try to help you out with finding the right kind of derivation that you can make. So let's take one example of something that happens very often. So many of you must have decided that, hey, I will write the LSAT only if my friend writes the LSAT. So the same thing has happened with A and B. A writes the LSAT only if B writes the LSAT. Now, on the basis of this statement, what more information can you derive? You can pause the video, think about it, and try to get the true information that you can get from this. Let me add one more question to your task before you pause the video. Can I derive this? Can I say that if A does not write the LSAT, then B will not write the LSAT? You can take a moment to think about it before you listen further into the lesson. So I hope you've given it some thought. Okay, when you look at this statement, the statement that's perhaps given to you in the question, as you can see, the statement, when you shorten it and kind of put a quote to it, it's like if B writes the LSAT, then A writes the LSAT, right? The question does not deal with what happens if A writes or does not write. If you notice, this statement here does not talk about what happens if A writes or if A does not write. It only deals with what B does, right? Therefore, you cannot draw this conclusion. This conclusion is wrong, because this statement does not tell you anything about what happens if A writes or if A does not write. It only talks to you about B. So what is the statement that you can genuinely draw from this? Let's have a look. Since this statement talks about what B does, right? So it says that if B writes the LSAT, then A writes the LSAT, which means that only if B writes the LSAT. What that means is that if B does not write the LSAT, what happens? That's something you can talk about. You see, if B does not write the LSAT, then you can infer that A does not write the LSAT. I hope you get the point. I cannot predict if A does not write the LSAT, what does B do? I don't know. We cannot predict it because that is not something that you can derive on the basis of what is given to you. So the only piece of information that you can derive is that if B does not write the LSAT, then A does not write the LSAT. Let us look at a few more examples to clarify this point. Okay, so all of us know that when it is raining, then peacocks often unfurl their feathers and they dance. So let's take a little example based on that. If it rains, the peacock is happy. What information can you derive from this? Take a moment, pause the video and think whether you can derive this. Pause the video and think about it. You might perhaps have noticed a little difference between this question and the previous one. You see, here, if is in the beginning, whereas in the previous example, if was in the second half of the sentence. But that doesn't make a great difference really. Whether I say the peacock is happy if it rains, or if I say if it rains, the peacock is happy, it's one and the same. Let's go ahead and see whether you can actually draw this inference or not. In the previous example, I told you that when we say, for example here, if it rains, then the peacock is happy. We have understood from this statement what happens if it rains. It does not tell us anything about what happens if the peacock is happy. It does not give us that information. Therefore, if the peacock is happy, maybe it rains, maybe it shines, maybe there's snowfall. We can't know. Therefore, this is not a piece of information that you can derive from what is given to you. This is not something that you can derive. It's an important point for you to remember. Let me ask you one more question. Can you perhaps derive this? That if it is not raining, the peacock is unhappy. Pause the video and think about it. Take a moment, pause the video and think about it. You need to tune yourself to be able to understand these kind of things. Okay, let me give you a bit of an example. You see, the statement here says that if it rains, the peacock is happy. You see, this is one statement. There might be many more statements. Let's say, for example, it is also possible that this peacock is happy if it snows, then the peacock is happy. If you give the peacock some chocolate, then the peacock is happy. If you dance for the peacock is happy. Which means that maybe even if it does not rain, the peacock could be happy because of something else. Or maybe the peacock is a happy person. You know, if there's a happy person by nature, whether it rains or not, he's happy. So here it's saying if it rains, I am happy. If it doesn't rain, I am happy. Which means that you cannot derive this either. Maybe the peacock is a happy person by nature. Even if it is not raining, the peacock is happy. If it rains, the peacock is happy. So what is the real information that you can derive from here? Take a moment and think about it before you look at the answer. On the basis of the statement, we just realized that if it rains, then the peacock is happy. So let R refer to the event of it's raining and let P refer to the event of peacock being happy. Okay. We cannot say anything. If the peacock is happy, then what? Well, we can't say. But if the peacock is not happy, which means the opposite of the event P, if I say not P, right? Let's say the other event is not P. Can you infer something on the basis of this? Yes, you can. If the peacock is not happy, then it surely means that it has not rained or it is not raining. You see, if it rains, the peacock is happy. And if the peacock is unhappy, it definitely means that it has not rained. And therefore, this is a contrapositive. It is the true information that you can derive from what has been given to you. Let us look at one more example. Let me take one more example for you from something that you must be facing at home. So your mom tells you that you cannot eat the sweet until you've had the vegetables. Okay. So if you don't eat vegetables, you cannot eat the dessert. Can I draw this information from this? Can I say that if you eat the vegetables, you can eat the dessert? Take a moment to think about it. Let me explain this to you. There are two kinds of conditions, right? Conditions can be either necessary or conditions can be sufficient. Click on the I button at the top in order to see my lesson on necessary and sufficient conditions. But as you can see here, what you understand is that you cannot eat the dessert if you do not eat vegetables. You cannot eat the dessert. So let's take D as eating the dessert and we will say not D as not eating the dessert. And it helps us to make a code. So what we'll do is let us maybe take D dash as not D. So eating vegetables is V, not eating vegetables is V prime or this dash. Okay. So now that we have a code, let's see if we can simplify this for ourselves. So you see, what we derive, what we get from here directly is if you don't eat vegetables, which means that if you don't eat vegetables, you cannot eat the dessert. Here what we are trying to say is that if you eat the vegetables, you can eat the dessert. Is this something that I can draw from here or not? The answer is no. Let me tell you why. You see, it says if you don't eat the vegetables, you cannot eat the dessert. But there might have been more conditions. Maybe the mother has also said, if you don't practice legal reasoning. So maybe she said, if you don't practice logical reasoning, if you don't practice reading comprehension, I will not allow you to eat the dessert. So no logical reasoning, no dessert. Maybe she said, wash your hands. So if you don't wash your hands, you don't get the dessert. So you see, maybe you've eaten vegetables, right? But still, if you've not done these, you might not get the dessert. This actually is a problem dealing with necessary and sufficient conditions. You can click here on the top right of your screen and watch my lesson on necessary and sufficient conditions. But I hope you get the point. It is possible that you might eat the vegetables, but you still cannot eat the dessert. Therefore, I will reject this. Let's go ahead and look at something more. Let us say, if you are not eating the dessert, is it because you have not eaten the vegetables? We just saw that it is not true. Maybe if you are not eating the dessert, it is because maybe you didn't wash your hands. Maybe it's because you didn't study. Maybe because you maybe didn't have a bath or whatever. Maybe because you don't feel like eating the dessert, right? Maybe your mother has said that you can eat the dessert, that you cannot eat the dessert if you don't eat vegetables, but maybe you eat the vegetables and you don't want to eat yourself, right? So this is again something you cannot derive. So what is it that you can derive? What you can derive is that if you are eating the dessert, then you have eaten the vegetables. You see, initially what we saw was if you don't eat the vegetables, then you cannot eat the dessert. This is what the question says. I told you initially that we cannot derive this. This is not something we can derive. However, what we can derive is that if you're eating the dessert, you have eaten vegetables. I hope you get the point. You see, when if is here, the direction is from D to V, from V dash to D dash, right? Take a moment, think about this. It will get more clear to you if you spend some time on this. Like I always say, the LSAT India is about disciplining the mind and being able to draw the right kind of inferences. An inference is something that's not given, but that you can draw from it. And this is something that you need in across all three sections of the LSAT India, right? So don't use your intuition. You must have noticed that your guesswork will not help you. Use the method and trust that if you give it a little bit of practice, it will get better. For your practice, I have some questions for you. You can answer these for me in the comments section. So the first question is, on the basis of this, what is it that you can infer? Second question, on the basis of this, what can you infer? Let me know in the comments. I hope this lesson was of use to you. God bless you.